Okay, so here we are live with another WWE Superstars figure, and this is Mr. T. I pity the fool that don't recognize Mr. T. It includes fabric jacket and pants. There's the back with the cross-sell artwork and a nice illustration of Mr. T. It's the same illustration that's on the front, just in black and white. And we can see it says, I pity the fool, and I got no time for jibba jabba. And first name Mr., last name T, which the actual full quote is first name Mr., middle name is that period, last name T. And I love my mother because everybody should love his mother. So, and then we see the other figures available on the back in this assortment were Typhoon, Mr. T, Macho Man Randy Savage, and The Rock. Unfortunately, this is the only one of these I've managed to get so far. I had seen them all at retail at one point. This is an older figure, but I never got around to getting Typhoon, unfortunately. I did want to get Typhoon. I don't have Macho Man and The Rock in this line either, but I do have their figures from the Masters of the WWE Universe, so at least I have them represented in this format. But I would like to pick those up one of these days if I can find them again. I just didn't have the money for them at the time. But I did have the money for Mr. T. I had to get Mr. T because Mr. T is like one of my childhood heroes. So again, the artwork in the back, like I'm pretty sure if you had all the figures from this assortment, you could put them all together and make one big picture. Lots of characters wearing wrestling T-shirts, like I see Mankind, Macho Man, Heartbreak Kid over here. I think there's another one underneath that I noticed. Can't quite get a look at it. Well, we'll see it when we take it off the package, off the back of the cards. Let's go ahead and do that. So this does look to be a different head sculpt from the Masters of the WWE Universe version of Mr. T. And of course, that one had like a recolored version of the breastplate from the Masters Universe Classics version of Jitsu, not the Origins version of the Jitsu because they hadn't made him yet. And he also had two big gloves that fit over his fists that looked like the prosthetic hands that Fisto and Jitsu came with, except for I think it was the Jitsu one that was on a different hand. Because obviously one was supposed to go on the left hand, one was supposed to go on the right hand. And I think that Jitsu's was supposed to go on the right hand. But whatever, it doesn't matter. The same fist came with only it was Mr. T's was gold and a black version of it came with Roman Reigns. So here's all the extra hands. And one thing that I noticed about these hands is pretty cool is if you look at them on he's got this kind of standard He-Man gripping hands on there, but some of these hands that come with the the alternate hands have big rings on them. So that's really awesome. You don't see the rings interpreted on Mr. T all that often. Maybe the Ultimate figure had hands with rings on them. Maybe they're recycled from that. And then two pointing hands, which if I compare it to the pointing hands that came with Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Hulk Hogan, they are indeed the same exact hands that came with the Ultimate version of Hulk Hogan. Just only this time they're molded in brown plastic instead of that tan plastic that Hogan's hands were molded in. So I'm guessing that that's what they did. I'm guessing that these ring hands are recycled from the Ultimate version of Mr. T, which unfortunately I've not been able to get yet. But hopefully I will be able to get one of these days because that's a pretty cool figure. So I'm definitely going to swap out the hands because I want to have the rings on the hands. I think that's really cool. So for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time getting a hold of this. There we go. All right, so we have Mr. T. Let's get him out of this little tray. And he does have some rubber tabs holding him in at the wrists and ankles, but I was actually able to pull it out fairly easily. Didn't need to cut through it this time. So there he is out of the package, and we can see that he's wearing an outfit that, looks almost kind of like camouflage overalls over a long sleeve red shirt. And this is pretty consistent with clothes that we saw Mr. T wearing in the 80s. He often would wear camouflage clothing, since he was he was actually in the military himself at one point, and probably the thing he was most famous for in the 80s was being on the A Team, in which he played a Vietnam veteran who was a fugitive from justice, framed for a crime he didn't commit. I don't know why I phrased it that way. Of course, you were framed if you didn't commit the crime. but but yeah, the A Team was like a really super popular show, and Mr. T was a big part of the reason that that show was popular. So even if you're not a fan of wrestling, I would imagine a lot of 80s kids, that grew up in that time period, people my age, you'd want to have this Mr. T figure just because you like Mr. T. So that's probably why the Mr. T figures sell out pretty fast, is because there's like a whole subsection of people that would just want a Mr. T figure that might not even give a crap about wrestling. So, and of course, he's got the gold chains. That was one thing that the WWE Universe version was missing, is he didn't come with the gold chains. But I guess they figured, the Jitsu armor kind of looked somewhat similar to that, especially because they colored the red parts of the Jitsu armor blue in that version. So it looked kind of like kind of vaguely like the gold chains over a denim vest. And sometimes you'd see Mr. T wearing a denim vest. I know in the cartoon of Mr. T, yes, he had his own cartoon. His usual outfit was he had a denim vest and kind of olive drab pants, not camouflage, because I guess they figured simplify it for the animation, so they were just kind of olive drab pants. But let's go ahead and have a look at the outfit and how it removes from the figure. Unlike Hulk Hogan, I think I'm going to leave this outfit on the figure when I display him. Although I do wish he had, either just a vest or shorter sleeves, because then the arms would be easier to move. But I want to go over the articulation, so we're going to take off the outfit. So let's pop his head off first, and then you can take off his chains. We'll set the head and the chains aside, and then we'll remove his belt. And let's have a look at this belt when we remove it. And it's pretty similar to the weight belt that came with Hulk Hogan, with the tabs in the back, and it has a hard plastic. Like, most of the belt is kind of soft, rubbery plastic, but they made actually a hard plastic T buckle that's kind of, you can see it's kind of held in here with some T-shaped pegs. And I think that, I'm not sure if that's like a separate piece that's glued on with those pegs, or if it's just kind of one solid piece that's wrapped around. You can probably stretch it and pull this belt buckle out without damaging the belt, I think. But I'm not going to take a chance on trying to remove it. But that's what the belt buckle looks like. Get a closer look at that. And it looks like the pants and the shirt are indeed two separate pieces. So that's good. So I might leave the pants on him, but just take the shirt off of him. So both of these bracers are separate pieces. And this one has a slit on the side, so you can take it off easily that way. But this one here, we're going to have to remove his hand to get it off. But that's fine, so I'm going to take both these hands off anyway. So there's that bracer. Okay. Now, Mr. T stopped wearing his gold in real life when he was dealing with Hurricane Katrina, and he saw people who had lost everything in their lives, and he just didn't feel like it was appropriate for him to wear the gold anymore. But this is an 80s Mr. T, so he's still got all his gold. So I'm probably not gonna put this jacket back on. I'm probably gonna leave that off. So I'm gonna make sure I Velcro it in the back so it doesn't get frayed or anything. I'm probably gonna put the pants back on him after this video, because I do like the pants, and that means I'm probably gonna put the belt back on him too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these pants off of him so we can see what he looks like without the pants. And like his tag team partner, Hulk Hogan, Mr. T is wearing yellow trunks. And I happen to have Hogan here. Now, one thing that I noticed is different between Hogan's trunks and Mr. T's trunks is they did paint a little bit of extra yellow at the top of his thighs, I guess to give Mr. T a little bit more modesty. I don't know. And Mr. T has yellow knee pads. So, like I said, these two were a tag team at WrestleMania. They went up against Roddy Piper and I think it was Cowboy Bob Orndorff. Was it? I think so. So yeah, that was that they were a tag team together. Let's go ahead and put the gold back on him when I put him back together. I do want to go over the articulation, and I want Mr. T to have his chains because, like I said, 80s Mr. T. So, and let's go ahead and while I'm at it, I'm going to put these rings, the hands with the rings on them. So one of the hands with the rings is a gripping hand, and one of the hands is a fist hand. So we can see his right hand is a solid fist, his left hand is a gripping hand, and he looks really cool with those rings on. I like that. That is awesome. And let's go ahead and so we can see what it looks like. Put one of those pointing hands in there. Well, that's the wrong one. It's like he's telling you to be somebody. Yeah. So so that's pretty cool. I forgot to put the bracers back on him, so let's go ahead and put the bracers back on him. I'm not going to put the jacket back on him, so I might as well just put on the bracers. And put the fist hand back on him. And of course, we don't have to have the handoff for this one. Since these are recycled from the Ultimate version and those have a slightly longer peg, I think that's why there's a little bit of space here at the wrist. You can kind of see it maybe. But hopefully it won't be as apparent when we get the bracer back on him. There we go. And like I said, I'm going to keep the pants on him just like all the time. I think the pants probably don't hinder his articulation as much as the shirt does. But it looks really cool. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So let's go over his articulation now that I got that off. Head should rotate all the way around. Of course, I got the necklace on there, so the chains are going to kind of hinder that a little bit. He can look down about that far. He can look up about that far, slightly higher than Hogan did. He doesn't even have the excuse of having the hair to hinder it. He just doesn't look up that well. So arms, of course, rotate all the way around at the shoulder. They move up about that far. He's got a bend at the elbow, but of course, since this figure is based on He-Man, his arms are kind of muscle bound. So that's about the extent of the bend at the elbow that you get. And then it does rotate all the way around at the elbow. He's got wrist joints that rotate all the way around. And then he's got like a horizontal hinge. So you can move him in about that far, move him out about that far. And like I said, since these hands aren't really, the joints aren't really made for these figures. They fit, but it is a little bit more loose than the standard Mo2 joints. I'll show you the difference right now. You can see that the ones that were made for the Ultimate figure, the pegs are slightly slimmer and a bit longer. So they don't go in quite as well as the ones that were intended to go in with the He-Man figures. So even though they do go in, they don't go in like exactly the same way. Can we pull his arms out? Doesn't seem like it. So, but he does probably still come apart in the middle, just like Hulk Hogan did. There we go. But I think that they probably took out the feature of the removable arms for the WWE figures, unfortunately. Leg kicks up about that far. He can do the splits no problem. Got a knee joint. It is a little bit hindered by the knee pad, but that's about the range of motion you get on that. it doesn't hinder it quite as much as you might think. And then he's got a boot cut where his socks start. So I guess it's a sock cut, but whatever. That rotates. Well, I rotated the knee. That rotates all the way around. The knee does rotate all the way around. He's got the rocker ankles. They point down about that far. They point up about that far. So not the best range of motion at the ankles, but decent enough. And of course, since they're rocker ankles, they swivel all the way around like that. So that's pretty much it for the articulation. Now that I've gone over his articulation, I'm going to put his pants back on. So, like I said, I don't think that the pants would hinder the articulation as badly as the shirt does. Because, you know, anytime that I've tried to move these arms with the shirts on, I think, A, just they're really muscular arms, and B, like the shirts are kind of tight on the figure anyway. This is being a pain. So I'm going to, let's see, here's I got a paintbrush. When I took the pants off, it turned them completely inside out. Now I'm having a hard time turning them back right side in. So there we go. Hopefully I should be able to get the pants on fairly easily. Since, but yeah, since he's kind of muscle bound and the, you know, the shirts are kind of tight, you can't really move the arms as well with the shirts on. And I do want to take advantage of the full range of motion on his arms. But I think with the pants on, he should try. That probably shouldn't hinder the articulation of the legs too much. It's not like the articulation in the legs on these figures is anything to write home about. I mean, it's definitely better than the He-Man figures I had in the 1980s. It's got knee articulation and ankle articulation and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, you know, it's just kind of like, since that's about as far up as he can move his leg anyway, even if he didn't have the pants on. And you see the pants are just a slight bit too short. Like, they should be, I would want to ideally about flush with the tops of his socks, but you can still see a little bit of the flesh color peeking through there, where like his skin is exposed. Now that we have the pants back on, let's go ahead and put the belt back on as well, because I do think that belt's really cool. So I want to have him with the belt. Mr. T! Probably one of the most memorable moments with Mr. T is something he wasn't even in, which would have been the movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in which Pee-wee eats some Mr. T cereal. And I'm sure a lot of people who did not grow up in the 80s figure that was just some kind of joke that, like, oh, he's eating Mr. T cereal. That's so wacky. No, Mr. T cereal was something that actually existed. It was basically like Captain Crunch, but it was shaped like T's. That was how they did a lot of licensed cereal back then, was they just, oh, it's just Captain Crunch, but it's shaped like, you know, a gremlin, or shaped like a Batman symbol, or, you know, shaped like Robin Hood's arrows. Like, for whatever reason, like, Captain Crunch was like the go-to cereal for licensed cereals to knock off for a while in like the 80s on into the early part of the 90s. But I think eventually they realized kids like cereal with marshmallows. So then you had like mostly they were marshmallow cereals from that point on. Like, I remember Spider-Man cereal was basically like Chex with marshmallows in it. And I guess because Chex looked kind of vaguely like a web, so they figured that was a good cereal for Spider-Man. So that's the way I'm going to leave him on display, with the camouflage pants and the belt and the chains and the rings on his hands and the bracers. And this is the way that I remember Mr. T when I was a kid, mostly. I'm going to leave the shirt off of him, like I said, because I think that's going to help with the articulation. Let's get one more shot of Mr. T and Hulk Hogan together, and they look really good together. They really complement each other. I think it works better even with Mr. T with the pants on, because then they're not wearing the same exact outfit, but they still complement each other and look good together. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Mr. T. I think he's one of the better figures that I've had in the Superstars line so far, which makes sense because he was also one of my favorite characters in the Masters of the WWE Universe figures. So yeah, I just like Mr. T. I just think Mr. T is really cool, and he's a guy that I've got a lot of love and admiration and respect for. Like he's been one of my heroes since I was a kid, so it's really cool to always have a Mr. T action figure. So maybe I could even make a Sylvester Stallone on on a He-Man body, and then have a Clubber Lang versus Rocky kind of thing going on. That would be fun. But I think he looks really good with the pants, without the shirt, and with as much bling as I can get onto this figure. So I think he looks really great that way. So yeah, so that's both of those out of the way. I don't have any more WWE figures to open right now, but I'm sure I'll have more in the future. If you want to see more in the future, make sure you like and subscribe. All that fun YouTube stuff down low. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about these figures. If I get more engagement on wrestling figures, I might do more wrestling figures. As it is, I just kind of pick up the wrestling figures that I think are interesting and don't really buy all of them at once. This is going to be the next figure I'm going to open. If not later this evening, it'll be sometime tomorrow. But got the Superpowers Green Lantern. Been looking forward to opening up that one. And another one that I'd picked up recently was I got the Batman version of the Penguin for $10. So he's going to be a custom fodder project, obviously. But yeah. So anyway, but that's pretty much it for Mr. T. I hope you enjoyed this video. We will talk to you next time. Bye. Why isn't it ending? There we go.